Remember those childhood dreams? You know, the ones where you're zipping around, soaring over rush hour traffic in your very own flying car? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into that world. And let me tell you, it might be closer than we think. You sent us some really fascinating articles and notes all about flying cars, and we're taking this deep dive just for you.
It's amazing, isn't it? The idea of flying cars, it's been around forever. I mean, we're talking centuries of captivating imaginations. This isn't some like new tech obsession. It's really woven into how we envision the future.
It really is. You even include that picture of the Curtiss XF5LY, that 1946 model. What a classic. It's like someone said, hey, what if we took a car and just slapped some wings on it? Voila.
Yeah.
Very vintage. Very cool.
It perfectly captures that early ambition, although realistically it leaned more plane than car. But it just goes to show how long we've been playing around with this whole flying car concept. And these days, it feels like the technology is finally catching up to all those dreams.
So let's hit the gas and speed away from the history for a bit. Let's talk about what's actually flying around up there today, or at least what's in development. Your research mentioned a few different types of flying cars. It's way more interesting than just cars with wings, huh?
You're absolutely right. There's a real diversity in how developers are tackling this challenge, which tells you just how complex it really is. Take VTOLs, for instance. Vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Picture a helicopter, but, sleeker, more modern looking, and hopefully a bit easier on the ears. Companies like Lilium Jet, they've got this electric jet engines, really cool stuff. And then there's Joby Aviation. They're known for their five-seater air taxi model. They're really leading the way in that area.
So those VTLs, those are the ones that'd be perfect for city life, right? No need for a runway, just straight up and away. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. But then on the flip side, you've got the more, shall we say, classic looking flying cars, the ones with actual wings. These are designed more like traditional planes, fixed wings, retractable landing gear for when they need to, well, land, obviously. Think the Terrafugia transition, which can go from road to sky in less than a minute, or the Aeromobile. Now that one's aiming to be a real luxury option. Very sleek, very sporty looking.
Wait, the Terrafugia transition, it transforms from car to plane in less than a minute. Seriously?
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay, so those are definitely for the folks who want that fast and furious moment, hitting the gas and taking off from a runway. But I'm hoping for their sake, those come with some serious safety features. Ejector seats, maybe? For those almost had a mid-air collision moments.
Haha. I like the way you think. But you do raise a good point, because joking aside, safety is paramount with all of this. It's not just about the thrill, right? And that actually brings us to one of the biggest hurdles this whole flying car industry is facing right now.
Right, because we can't have flying cars just falling out of the sky like something out of a movie. Wouldn't exactly inspire a whole lot of confidence in the whole future of transportation thing, would it?
Definitely not. And that's exactly why you're seeing such a huge emphasis on regulations, stringent regulations, and incredibly thorough testing. Those are going to be absolutely crucial for this industry to, if you'll pardon the pun, really take off.
Makes sense. And speaking of potential downsides, one of the articles you dug up mentioned noise pollution. And it's a good point. Can you imagine thousands of these things buzzing around overhead?
Oh.
Our cities would sound like a scene straight out of a sci-fi film, and not necessarily a good way.
It's a valid concern, for sure, and a very serious one. It's exactly why engineers are putting so much effort into developing quieter propulsion systems, especially for those VTOLs we talked about, the ones designed for urban environments. But it's not the only hurdle.
Yeah, noise pollution, that's a big one. But then there's the whole environmental impact too, right? We're talking about emissions, energy use, the whole 9 yards. And we're trying to move toward a greener future. So flying cars, they've got to be part of that solution, not adding to the problem.
Absolutely. Sustainability is key here. And that's why you see developers really looking into things like electric propulsion, biofuels, even hydrogen power for these vehicles. The goal is to make them as eco-friendly as possible. And actually, some experts argue that flying cars could be, in the long run, better for the environment.
Really? How so?
That's interesting.
Think about it. Fewer cars on the road, which means less congestion, fewer cars just sitting there idling, spewing out emissions. Plus, flying cars, they could use more direct routes, right? Cutting down on overall travel distances. Now, granted, this all depends on how the tech evolves, how we integrate it into our current infrastructure, but it's definitely an area with a lot of potential for a positive impact. That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it like that. It's easy to get caught up in all the what-ifs and the downsides and totally forget that these advancements could actually offer solutions to some of the problems we're already facing,
Yeah.
like turning a challenge into an opportunity.
Exactly. And that's what I think makes this whole field so fascinating. It's not just about, building some cool new gadget. It's about rethinking transportation from the ground up, no pun intended. And speaking of challenges turned into opportunities, one of the articles you sent mentioned how flying cars could be a game changer for healthcare, disaster relief, that sort of thing. Imagine being able to reach remote communities quickly and efficiently, even places that are difficult, if not impossible, to get to by car.
Oh, right. Like
Yep.
that study you found about that prototype flying car, the one that delivered medical supplies to that village in Nepal after the earthquake. They said it got there hours faster than any vehicle on the ground ever could. Incredible.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Think about emergency response times in general. A flying car could easily navigate around traffic jams, flooded roads, anything, potentially saving a life in the process. It could be revolutionary, especially for areas with limited infrastructure.
Okay, now I'm getting excited about this.
Yeah.
We've talked about the potential downsides, but what about the upsides? Besides just, not having to sit in traffic, what kind of impact are we talking about here in a broader sense? How could this change things?
Well, it could revolutionize whole industries beyond just transportation. Think logistics, for example. Deliveries could become so much faster and more efficient with flying cars moving goods around. And you mentioned traffic earlier, and that's huge. Imagine all that time you waste sitting in traffic gone. People could live further away from city centers, opening up all sorts of possibilities for housing, urban development, you name it.
Goodbye, rush hour. Hello, freedom. I can already picture it.
Hmm.
Me in my flying car, soaring above the gridlock, sipping my coffee, enjoying the view. Sign me up.
It's a tempting image, isn't it? And you can't forget about the economic boost this would bring. This whole new industry would create so many jobs. Pilots, mechanics, air traffic control, designers, software engineers. It'd be like the dawn of the automobile. But this time, we're taking to the skies.
You're right. It really does feel like we're on the verge of this whole new era of transportation. And what's even more exciting? We can't even imagine all the ways this tech will change our lives. Like, remember when the internet was brand new? No one could have predicted how much it would change the world. And this feels like that.
It's true. The possibilities are pretty much endless. And sure, there are challenges to overcome. But one thing's for sure. This tech, it's going to keep advancing and at an incredible pace.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? I mean, a few decades ago, smartphones, those seemed like something out of Star Trek. And now, can't imagine life without them. Flying cars could be the same way. Our kids, our grandkids, they'll probably think we're living in the dark ages because we had to drive everywhere.
Absolutely. And here's something else to consider, something that came up in your research. We're not just talking about copying what we already have with cars, but putting it in the air. This is a chance to completely rethink how we design cities.
You mean like how we even approach urban planning?
Exactly. Picture it. Cities where buildings connect at different levels in the air, rooftop parks but designed for flying cars to land on, whole skyways for transportation, recreation. The sky becomes another dimension to our cities.
Whoa, now that's a mind bender. Buildings connected in the air, parks for flying cars to land on. It's like something out of a futuristic movie. But it also makes you think about the challenges, right? Like, how do you even begin to design something like that? And safety. We worry about cars crashing on the ground, but in the air. That's a whole other level of concern.
You're right, safety would be absolutely crucial. We'd need air traffic control systems, top-notch, maybe even autonomous flying features to prevent accidents. And the design aspect, huge. It'd require a total rethink of how we do urban planning. Architects, engineers, they'd have to collaborate in ways they never even have before.
It's exhilarating, but kind of daunting too, right? Thinking about how massive those changes would be. But like you said earlier, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we decide to use it, integrate it into our lives.
Precisely. And that actually leads to another crucial point that your research highlighted. It's not enough for this technology to just exist. It has to be accessible. We don't want a future where flying cars are just for the wealthy, creating a whole new kind of inequality.
100%. We've seen that happen with other tech advancements. It's so important to learn from those mistakes. Flying cars, they should be a benefit for everyone, not just a select few.
Completely agree. Equity, accessibility, those have to be front and center in any conversation about the future of flying cars. And it's encouraging to see that a lot of companies, the ones developing this technology, they're already thinking about this stuff. They're looking into ways to make it affordable, available to everyone.
Well, one thing's for sure. The future of transportation is looking pretty exciting and maybe a little bit up in the air, literally. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into the world of flying cars. Until next time. Keep your eyes on the skies. You never know what you might see.